said it lightly, oh, I'm divorced, and we went on from there. Bite the bullet. A bullet is something very hard. It's something that comes out of a gun. It doesn't seem like a fun activity, right? Bite a bullet? Well, that's what this idiom means. It means to stop procrastinating and do something difficult. For me, I hate calling my insurance company, but sometimes I just have to bite the bullet. We often use just have to with this expression. I just have to bite the bullet. Or if you're trying to encourage someone to do something difficult, you might say, you just have to bite the bullet. Just do it. Get out of hand. To lose control. A classroom of 23-year-old children can quickly get out of hand, as you might imagine. We often use the expression quickly get out of hand to explain something that is almost impossible. 23-year-olds in the same classroom. Imagine. Wrap your head around something. This is to understand something complicated. We usually use this in negative sentences, though. I can't wrap my head around something. This was true for me as a high school student. I couldn't wrap my head around complex math problems. That just wasn't how my brain was working in high school. I couldn't wrap my brain or wrap my head around them. To play something by ear. This means you're not making definite plans. You might say, well, I want to go hiking tomorrow, but it might rain. So let's play it by ear. That means that you are going to look at the news report in the morning, look at the weather forecast in the morning, and if it seems fine, you'll go. If it seems bad, you won't go. You will just play it by ear. A blessing in disguise. This is something good that seemed bad at first. So like we just talked about previously with COVID lockdowns, there's a silver lining. This has a similar idea here. COVID lockdowns were kind of a blessing in disguise for some people because they got to spend more time with their family. Notice that I used kind of a blessing in disguise. This phrase kind of makes this not so strong. Of course, there were many terrible things about COVID lockdowns. A lot of people were lonely, a lot of people lost jobs, a lot of people felt fear. But if we're talking about a blessing, a positive thing that was disguised as something negative, well, we might try to find the silver lining here that people got to spend more time with their family. Our next category of idioms are related to money. And the first one is to break the bank. When you break the bank, it means that there is something really expensive. But we often use this in a negative sense. For example, you might say that learning English on YouTube doesn't break the bank. In fact, it's free. So there's no way that it can be expensive when it's free. Learning on YouTube doesn't break the bank. Give you a run for your money. This is talking about a challenge. If you need to run in order to catch money, this is probably going to be a little difficult, so we're talking about this challenge here. You might say that the Italian soccer team, or football team like the rest of the world says, the Italian soccer team gave the German soccer team a run for their money. This means that the Italian soccer team was really tough to beat. Maybe the German soccer team is awesome and they think they're going to win, but then when they play the Italian team, they think, oh, wow, they are giving us a run for their money. Or you might say, having a toddler and a newborn is giving me a run for my money. This isn't talking about some kind of competition or even money, but it's a challenge. Having a toddler, a 3-year-old, and a newborn, like I do, is a difficult thing. It's just the way it is, but it is giving me a run for my money. Up the ante. Or we could say this final word, ante. Sometimes we cut off the T to up the ante or to up the ante. This has to do with when you're playing cards in a gambling situation. You put some money on the table, maybe $5, and then the next person puts $10 on the table. They is giving me a run for my money. They raised the situation to be better or more difficult. And that's what this figurative idiom is talking about as well, to request or to do more. So we might say, my sister brought a salad to the dinner party, but I decided to up the ante. I brought homemade bread and 2 bottles of wine. That means that I did more than she did. I kind of raised the bar, another wonderful idiom, for what is expected. I did something better. The next category of idioms include action words. I'm sorry, I tried to find a way to put these idioms into a category, but it was almost impossible because they don't have money words, animal words, human body words. They're kind of in a category of their own. So our next 2 categories, the first one is action words, and the last one is just extra idioms. So sorry that these don't exactly perfectly fall into a category, but they are still extremely useful, and I wanted to make sure that they were included in this lesson. So let's get started with the next idiom that talks about an action word at the beginning. Cut someone some slack. This means that you don't judge someone too harshly. For example, you might say, sorry, I forgot to call you. Please cut me some slack. I haven't slept in weeks. We usually use this as a request. Please cut me some slack. Please be gentle with me. If I make a mistake in this video related to one of these idioms, please cut me some slack. This means that you don't judge someone too harshly. For example, you might say a line or draw the line. These are used interchangeably, and that means that you know the difference between something that's okay and not okay, something that's acceptable or not acceptable. We might say that there are a lot of ways to raise a child, but most people draw the line at violence. So we might say there's a lot of ways that you can be a good parent or a bad parent, but most people say, on the side here that's not acceptable is violence. Most people draw the line at violence. Don't be violent, just be gentle with your children. Play devil's advocate. Here you are arguing the opposite point just for the fun of it, just for the purpose of debate. If you're having a conversation about how best to learn a language, how best to learn English, you might say, yeah, I know, I agree with you that textbooks are not the best way to learn a language, but to play devil's advocate, aren't grammar books useful when you are just starting to learn a language? So here the person has said, yes, I agree with you. Textbooks are not the best way to learn a language, and then they're going to argue the opposite point, a point that they don't exactly agree with, but they want to have some kind of fun debate with you about the topic. So we use this expression to play devil's advocate when you're introducing an opposite opinion that you don't really agree with, but you just want to talk about. Rings a bell. This is something that sounds familiar, but you don't know exactly why. You might say, Victor Hugo? That name rings a bell. What did he do? He was only one of the greatest authors of all time. That name rings a bell. Go the extra mile. This means that you are doing something above and beyond what is expected. This happened a couple weeks ago. My neighbors went the extra mile and picked up my trash when a raccoon made a mess. We had our trash in the trash bin, but overnight when we weren't home, a raccoon got into the trash bin and put trash in our yard. So my neighbor came over and picked it up and put it back in the bin. This was not necessary, it was not required. I never asked him to do this, but he went the extra mile, and I thanked him for it. Make a long story short. This is to tell a long story briefly in just a couple words. If you ask me how Dan and I met, my husband, how we met, I might say, well, we met on the first day of college, and to make a long story short, we became friends, we dated for 5 years, and then we got married. We often use this expression with to at the beginning, to make a long story short, and then you can continue and tell your abbreviated summary of that long story. Jump on that bandwagon. This is to do a trend just because everyone else is doing it. So for example, when I was in high school, a lot of high school girls were dyeing their hair blonde, but I didn't jump on that bandwagon. I didn't do this. In fact, I've never dyed my hair, just something that's never really interested me. But when I was in high school, I didn't jump on that bandwagon. Our final category of idioms are just other miscellaneous idioms. There's 5 left and I want to share them with you. I didn't want to forget about them even though they don't really fit in one of the other categories. On the ball, to be prepared for something. My house is often messy, the sink is full of dishes, but in my professional life, I am almost always on the ball. So you might think that I always am on the ball, or another similar expression is I always have it together, but this is not the case. When you can record a video and edit it and plan it, this is much more different than doing the dishes and keeping your house in order. 24/7, all the time, something that happens constantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 24/7. For example, when you are a parent, you are busy 24/7. Or you might say, my neighbors play loud music 24/7, help, what do I do? Easier said than done. This is something that seems easier than it really is. For example, I always say that it is important, it is essential to use English a little bit every day. But easier said than done. Life is busy, things happen. But today, congratulations, you are using English today. You are enriching your mind with these idioms, so congratulations. Better late than never. Well, this is kind of self-explanatory. It's better to arrive late somewhere than not arriving at all. So if you come late to your friend's house, you might say, so sorry I'm late, traffic was awful. And they might say to you, oh, it's okay, better late than never. This is probably an idiom that you don't want to use at work, but it's okay to use in more informal situations. Our final idiom is so far, so good. And this means that everything is going well so far. I've been making videos on YouTube for almost 5 years, and so far so good. I don't plan to stop anytime soon. It has been going well. So far so good. Congratulations on flooding your mind with the top 50 English idioms, at least according to me. I have to get something off my chest and I won't beat around the bush. Making this lesson was tough. What you see here on YouTube is just the tip of the iceberg. But I decided to just bite the bullet and go the extra mile for you, my beloved students. I hope these 50 idioms are plain as day now. It's time for me to call it a day. Today, I'm going to help you to grow your knowledge, expand your vocabulary, and learn 50 more important phrases in English. These phrases are divided into different categories like animals, body, work, transportation, wisdom. This will just help you to kind of categorize them in your mind and help you to remember them. I hope you are definitely going to hear these when you watch English movies and TV shows and have conversations. We use them all the time. Let's get started with our first category. Our first category are idioms that have to do with animals or animal characteristics. A little bird told me. A little bird told me it was your birthday. Here's a present. This is when you know a secret, but you don't want to reveal who told you. So if you're giving a little present to your friend and your friend thinks that you don't know that it's his birthday, you might say this sentence, a little bird told me it was your birthday today. Here you go. As the crow flies. As the crow flies, I'm pretty close to the school, but because of lots of one-way streets, it takes me a long time to get there. What do you think this means? As the crow flies, a crow is a kind of bird. It's really big and black. There's a lot of crows in my yard and they always make loud caw sounds. Caw, caw, caw. They're always really loud. I'm not sure why they chose this for this idiom, but this means that if you take the straightest distance, not accounting for one-way streets, just a straight distance, as the crow flies, I'm not that far from my school, but because of one-way streets, it takes me forever to get there.
to kill two birds with one stone. I wanted to bake cookies with my son, and I needed to make another English lesson for you here on YouTube, so I decided to kill two birds with one stone, and I did both. Have you seen the lesson where I baked cookies, chocolate chip cookies, with my 3-year-old son? You can watch this up here. It is it was delightful to film that with him and to eat cookies together. What do you think this idiom means? It means that you're getting two things done at the same time. You're saving time and you're being efficient. Curiosity killed the cat. Well, it's getting close to Christmas time here in the US, and if a package arrives at our door and my son says, oh, hey, I see we got a package, I might say, hey, curiosity killed the cat. Don't ask questions around Christmas time. And that's kind of hinting that probably this is a Christmas present for him and I don't want him to open that package. I'm kind of warning him about being too curious. So this is the meaning of the idiom that being curious can sometimes get you into trouble. Cat got your tongue. What's the matter? Why are